At the supermarket checkout, my sister slapped me because I refused to pay for her daughter's gift. The fluorescent lights in Marlow Market always made everyone look a little tired. It was a Saturday in late November, cold enough that the automatic doors sighed open and shut like they were relieved when they closed again. I'd come in for practical things: oatmeal, dish soap, a pack of printer paper for the office. Nothing emotional, nothing complicated. I was halfway down the baking aisle when my phone buzzed. "Lena, you in town?" My sister's texts always arrived like she'd already decided my answer. I stared at the screen for a second before replying. Me, at Marlow Market. Why? The typing dots appeared immediately. "Lena. Perfect. We're here too. Meet at the front. Need your help." I should have said no. Not because she needed help, but because help was never what she meant. With Lena, help was a word she used to wrap a demand in tissue paper and hand it to you like a gift. I looked at the list in my hand, then at the far end of the aisle where the store's holiday display was stacked with cheap ribbon and cinnamon-scented pine cones. It felt safer to finish my shopping and leave. It always felt safer to keep things simple. But I'd already replied. That was my mistake. By the time I reached the front, the store was louder. Carts clacking, the low hum of people waiting, a child crying near the customer service desk. I spotted Lena before she saw me. She was easy to find because she moved like someone in a commercial, shoulders back, hair perfectly curled, a long beige coat that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Next to her was her daughter Ivy, 9 years old, in a pink puffer jacket with glittery sleeves. Ivy was holding a small basket with both hands like it contained something delicate. Lena waved sharply. Not a friendly wave. "A summoning nin." "Finally," she said when I got close, like I'd made her late for something important. "I've been calling you." "You texted," I said. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. It landed in the air beside my face. Her eyes flicked to my cart. "That's it?" she asked, as if my groceries were a personal insult. "It's just me," I said. Lena made a small noise that meant, "You're still you." I'd been still me my whole life, quiet, careful, the one who watched before speaking. Lena was the opposite. She spoke first, decided the room's mood, filled space like it belonged to her. Ivy smiled at me. Her teeth were still uneven in that growing way, and she looked hopeful. "Auntie Mina," she said soft. "Mom said you'd help." "With what?" I asked, looking at Lena. Lena turned slightly so Ivy couldn't see her mouth clearly. "The gift." I waited. Lena liked withholding details because it kept people off balance. "What gift?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "For Claire." Claire was my cousin's daughter. Lena and my cousin Nadia had been in a quiet competition since they were teens. Weddings, houses, vacations, social media captions. Lena didn't care about Nadia's daughter as a person. She cared about showing up looking like the favorite aunt. Lena nudged Ivy's basket toward me. Inside was a boxed perfume set, adult-looking, glossy black packaging, the kind of thing locked behind a plastic case in nicer stores. The price sticker on the corner caught the light. $89.99. My eyes moved from the box to Lena. "That's not a kid gift," I said. "It's for her mom," Lena said quickly, then corrected herself like it didn't matter. "Fine, it's for Nadia. They're hosting Thanksgiving." "You want to show up empty-handed? It's embarrassing." "I already bought something," I said. "I sent Nadia those serving bowls she wanted." "They arrived last week." Lena blinked like she hadn't known that, or like it didn't count if no one saw me hand it over. "Okay," she said, smoothing her hair. "So this is from me and you." "Easy." "No," I said calmly. Lena's expression didn't change right away. She did that thing she always did, held her smile in place for one extra second while recalculating. "What do you mean, no?" she asked, still smiling. "I mean, I'm not paying for that," I said. "If you want to bring it, you can. But I'm not covering it." The smile dropped. Lena leaned closer, lowering her voice, but the line behind us was noisy enough that anyone nearby could still hear. "Don't do this here," she said. "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just saying no." Ivy shifted her weight, hugging the basket tighter. Her eyes moved between us. Lena's nails tapped the side of the perfume box. Her manicure was fresh, pale pink, almond-shaped. She'd gotten them done this week. I knew because she'd posted a story about it with the caption, "Self-care isn't optional." "Listen," she said, voice tight now. "I had to spend on Ivy's dance costume, and the school fundraiser, and the photographer for her birthday, because you know how Nadia is with her parties." "I don't," I said, "but I also don't see how that makes this my responsibility." Her eyes sharpened. "Because you're single, because you don't have kids, because you're stable," she said. Stable like it was a resource she could pull from, the way you pulled cash from an ATM. Behind us, a man with a basket cleared his throat. Lena didn't move. She stood half in my space, half in the aisle, blocking the line. It was a subtle form of control. If I tried to step away, I'd have to physically get around her. I took a slow breath. The truth was, I could afford the perfume set. I had a decent job. I lived alone. My expenses were simple. But that wasn't the point. The point was that Lena's requests weren't requests. They were tests. If I paid, it confirmed her version of reality, that I existed as a backup account. And I'd done it before, quietly, without keeping track the way I should have. When our father had gotten sick 2 years ago, Lena had been loud about handling everything, but the bills had come to me. She'd asked for help with rent, just this once. She'd sent me Ivy's school fee with the message, "Can you just take care of it? I'm overwhelmed." She'd promised to pay me back, then made jokes about me being the family bank. I'd laughed with everyone else because it was easier than explaining how humiliating it felt. But lately something had been shifting inside me. Not anger, more like clarity. I'd been waking up and realizing that being calm didn't have to mean being available. I moved my cart forward a few inches toward the checkout. "I'm not paying," I said again, same tone. No edge. Lena's voice went louder. She did it deliberately, so the cashier and the people around us would become witnesses to her version of events. "You can't even do this one thing?" she said, loud enough for the teenage cashier to glance up. "For your niece!" Ivy's head snapped up at the word niece. Her face brightened for a moment, like she was being offered something warm. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I kept my hand steady on the card handle. "This isn't for Ivy," I said, still calm, "and I already bought a gift." Lena turned to the cashier, as if the cashier were an authority figure who could enforce family rules. "Can you believe this?" she said, smiling in a strained way. "She's refusing to help me. I'm trying to be thoughtful, and she's being." She looked back at me. "Cheap." I didn't respond. That was another thing I'd learned. If you argue with someone like Lena in public, you look like the aggressor no matter how calm you are, because she knows how to perform wounded. The cashier, maybe 19, with tired eyes, looked down at the conveyor belt like she wanted to disappear. Lena's mouth tightened. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something sweet and sharp. "You're going to make me look bad," she hissed, quieter now. "You're doing that yourself," I said, but softly, without drama. "Just pay for it if you want it." Her jaw worked. She stared at me like I'd insulted her in a language she didn't understand. Then she reached out and grabbed the perfume box from Ivy's basket. Ivy's hand stayed in place, still curved like she was holding it, and that small detail bothered me more than anything else. Lena slammed the box onto my groceries on the conveyor belt, right on top of my printer paper. "Scan it," she said to the cashier. "Put it with hers." The cashier hesitated, eyes flicking to me. I took the perfume box off my groceries and set it back on the shelf divider, separating it from my items. "No," I said. "Don't scan that." Lena's face changed in a way I recognized. It wasn't rage yet. It was the moment before rage, when she realized a scene was slipping out of her control. "You're humiliating me," she said, voice rising again. Heads in line angled toward us. Someone stopped pushing their cart. "I'm not," I said. "I'm just not paying." Lena lifted her hand. It happened fast, but not in a blur. I saw her fingers spread slightly. I saw her wrist turn. I saw the movement coming, and still didn't step back. The slap landed on my left cheek, sharp, stinging, loud in the hum of the store. The sound was clean, like a book closing. For a second, the line went quiet in a strange way. Not silent, but focused. Like everyone's attention narrowed into a single point. I felt heat bloom under my skin. My cheek throbbed. I tasted something metallic, faint, where my teeth met my lip. I didn't move my hands from the cart handle. Lena's breathing was quick. Her eyes were wide, and for a fraction of a second she looked surprised, like even she hadn't expected herself to do it. Then she recovered, smoothing her face into something righteous. "See what you made me do?" she said loud. "You always push me. You always act like you're better than me." Ivy made a small sound, confused, scared. "Mom?" The cashier's mouth was slightly open. A woman behind us whispered, "Oh my God." I turned my head slightly, testing the ache, then looked at Lena. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch my cheek. I didn't say what my body wanted to say. I just looked at her, steady. And in that moment, I made a decision. Not to react, but to remember everything exactly as it happened. The date, the place, the line number above the register, the people watching, the security camera dome in the corner that I'd never paid attention to before. Lena had finally crossed a line she couldn't pretend wasn't real. I exhaled slowly, reached into my pocket, and picked up my phone. Not to call anyone. Not yet. Just to open my notes app and type one sentence with the timestamp still visible on the screen. Because if Lena was willing to slap me in public over an $89 perfume set, it meant this wasn't about money. It was about ownership. And I was done being quietly owned. I looked up at the cashier and spoke clearly, still calm. "Please ring up only my items," I said. Then I looked at Lena again and, without changing my tone, I said, the one thing she didn't expect me to say? "Go ahead," I told her. "Let's keep doing this your way." Lena's eyes narrowed, trying to understand what I meant. And that was when I noticed something else. Something small, almost easy to miss, sticking out of Lena's purse. A folded envelope with my name printed across the front in bold black letters. My full name, my legal name. The kind of envelope you don't carry around casually. I kept my face neutral, but my attention locked onto it as the cashier started scanning my oatmeal. Because whatever Lena had in her bag, she hadn't meant for me to see it, and I had a feeling the slap at the checkout was only the beginning. I paid for my groceries without looking at Lena again. The cashier avoided my eyes. But someone behind me murmured, "That was uncalled for." Lena said nothing. She stood very still, like movement might crack whatever composure she'd managed to glue back together. Ivy clutched her sleeve, whispering something I couldn't hear. I took the receipt when it printed and folded it once, cleanly, and slid it into my coat pocket. The printer paper was slightly dented where the perfume box had landed. I noticed that too. Details had started lining themselves up in my mind, the way they did when something mattered. I pushed my cart toward the exit. The automatic doors opened. Cold air rushed in. I didn't look back. Outside, my phone buzzed. "Lena, you embarrassed me." I unlocked the car, set the bags in the trunk, and closed it gently. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment without starting the engine. My cheek still burned, but the heat had settled into something dull and manageable. I typed back, "Me. You hit me in public." The reply came immediately, "Lena, don't be dramatic. It was a tap. You provoked me." I took a screenshot. Then another when she followed with, "Lena, family handles things privately. Don't turn this into something it isn't." I didn't answer. I started the engine and drove home. That night, I washed my face carefully, watching the skin pinken under warm water. There was no bruise yet, just a faint outline that would probably bloom by morning. I took a photo anyway. Neutral lighting, no expression, timestamp visible. I uploaded it to a folder I'd just created and named it with the date. I slept fine. The next day, I went to work as usual. "I didn't bring up the supermarket. I didn't post about it." I didn't ask for advice. I answered emails, attended a budget review meeting, and finalized a vendor contract. Competence had always been my anchor. It didn't leave me when something personal went wrong. At lunch, my phone buzzed again. "Lena, we need to talk." I didn't respond. That afternoon, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. The message came through a few minutes later. Her voice was tired, already leaning toward compromise. Your sister's upset, she said. You refused to help her and made a scene. I don't want this to become a whole thing. Can you just apologize so we can move on? I saved the voicemail. By evening, the bruise had appeared. Subtle, but there. I took another photo. I wasn't collecting these things out of spite. I was collecting them because patterns only mattered if you could show them. 2 days later, Lena sent a longer message. It arrived in 3 parts, which told me she'd been thinking about it. Lena, I'm under a lot of stress. Lena, you know how hard things are right now. Lena, I don't appreciate you acting like I'm some kind of monster. I read them once and put the phone down. The envelope I'd seen in her purse kept resurfacing in my thoughts. My full legal name wasn't something Lena used casually. She preferred the nickname from childhood, the one that made me sound younger, smaller. Formality from her usually meant paperwork or leverage. On Thursday, an email arrived from a bank I didn't recognize. Subject: Notice of account activity. I opened it slowly. It was addressed to me, correctly. My full name, my address. It referenced an account ending in 4 digits I didn't recognize and included a notice about a missed payment and a pending fee assessment. I logged into my credit monitoring service immediately. I checked for new accounts. There it was! A credit card opened 6 months ago in my name. Balance: $7,842.17. My chest didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. I'd spent years building habits that paid off in moments like this. I clicked through the details. The address on file was Lena's old apartment, the one she'd moved out of last year. The phone number was hers. The email address was a variation of my name with a number at the end, something she would think looked plausible. I pulled up my calendar. 6 months ago, Lena had texted me late one night. Lena, can I borrow your SSN real quick? Ivy's school form is glitching. I remembered hesitating, then sending it. She'd followed with a heart emoji and, thanks, lifesaver. I took screenshots of the account details, the application date, the address mismatch. I downloaded the statements: restaurants, boutiques, a dancewear store, a photographer, a hotel for one night in the city, tagged as a business expense in the memo field. The envelope made sense now. I didn't call Lena, I called the bank. The fraud department representative was calm, methodical. I answered questions, provided verification, and filed a report. I asked for copies of everything: application logs, IP addresses, signatures. I requested written confirmation. I asked about timelines. I didn't mention my sister. After the call, I drafted a timeline in a document and started filling it in. Dates, amounts, messages, voicemails, screenshots labeled and saved. I requested my credit report in full and marked every unfamiliar charge. I printed copies and placed them in a folder. The following week, Lena hosted Ivy's birthday party at a rented studio with pastel balloons and a photographer she tagged in every post. The invitation had arrived months earlier, before the supermarket. I'd already RSVP'd. Yes, I went. I brought a book for Ivy and a gift card taped inside the cover. Ivy hugged me when I arrived, hard and sincere. Lena kissed the air near my cheek again and said nothing else. Throughout the party, she played the role she always played: gracious, overwhelmed, admired. She made a joke about me being the practical one when someone asked what I did for work. She laughed loudly. People laughed with her. At one point, she leaned in and murmured, "We'll talk later." I nodded. I didn't ask when. 2 days after the party, my mother called again. Lena says you're accusing her of something serious, she said. She's very hurt. I haven't accused her of anything, I said. I haven't spoken to her. There was a pause. Well, my mother said carefully, she says you're threatening to involve people. I'd pictured Lena's confident smile at the party, the way she'd moved through the room like nothing could touch her. I'm not threatening, I said. I'm documenting. Another pause. That sounds extreme. It's appropriate, I said. After we hung up, I received an email from Lena's personal account. Subject: This needs to stop. The body was long and carefully worded. She wrote about family loyalty, about how I'd always been sensitive, about how money was just money and people mattered more. She suggested that stress had made her act out of character at the store. She said we could fix everything if I dropped whatever report I'd filed. She ended with, "I don't want things getting messy." I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to a new folder and saved the original with headers intact. The next morning, an envelope arrived at my apartment. My full legal name printed across the front in bold black letters. Inside was a typed letter, no letterhead. No signature, just a paragraph explaining that I owed a family-related debt and outlining a proposed repayment plan. Monthly installments that matched almost exactly the minimum payments on the fraudulent card. Attached was a photocopy of the credit card statement. At the bottom, in pen, was a note in Lena's handwriting. "Let's be adults about this." I didn't respond. I scanned the letter, the envelope, the handwriting. I added them to the folder. I updated the timeline. That afternoon, the bank emailed me confirmation the application had been submitted from an IP address associated with Lena's former apartment building. The signature on file didn't match mine. The investigation was proceeding. I closed my laptop and sat quietly for a moment. The slap at the supermarket hadn't been a loss of control. It had been a warning. She'd assumed I would fold the way I always had, privately, quietly, for the sake of peace. She'd misjudged the timing, because now I had something she couldn't laugh off. And when I checked the family group chat that evening, I saw Lena had posted an invitation. "Lena, Thanksgiving at our place this year. Big dinner, whole family. Let's reset and be together." Dozens of thumbs up and heart emojis followed. I set my phone down and opened my document one more time. At the top, I added a new heading, Key Recepted, handwritten acknowledgement of debt tied to fraudulent account. Then I wrote the date, and I RSVP'd yes. Thanksgiving arrived on a gray Thursday that felt heavier than it should have. Lena's house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, newly renovated, beige on beige, the kind of place designed to photograph well from every angle. Cars lined the street, my mother's sedan, my aunt's SUV, a couple of unfamiliar vehicles that told me friends had been invited too. Lena liked an audience. She liked witnesses when she thought they were on her side. I parked, checked my phone once, and locked the car. Inside my bag was a thin folder, nothing dramatic. No labels, just paper. The front door was open when I walked up. I could hear music, something jazzy and safe, and the low hum of conversation. Lena's laugh cut through it easily, confident and practiced. "Mina!" she called when she saw me, arms opening wide like nothing had ever happened. "You made it!" I stepped forward and let her hug me lightly. She smelled the same as always. Sweet, expensive, controlled. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said. Her smile tightened for a fraction of a second, then reset. "See? We're adults," she said, loudly enough for my mother to hear from the kitchen. "Family first." I nodded and took off my coat. The house was full. My mother was arranging food with the intensity of someone trying to keep everything from tipping. My Aunt Nadia stood near the window with a glass of wine, her husband beside her. Ivy ran past me with a paper crown on her head, laughing. I moved through the room calmly, greeting people, accepting a drink I didn't finish. I listened more than I spoke. I nodded who was there. Lena's friend Marissa, who worked in real estate. Her neighbor Tom, a local contractor. Nadia's sister-in-law, who did bookkeeping for a small firm. A handful of people who didn't know our history but understood numbers, paperwork, consequences. Lena hovered, checking angles, making sure conversations flowed the way she wanted. She was careful with me, polite, almost warm. That, too, was a calculation. She wanted normal. She wanted the story to be over. At one point, she pulled me aside near the hallway. "We're good, right?" she asked quietly, eyes searching my face. "No more misunderstandings!" I met her gaze. "I'm here," I said. She exhaled, like that was enough. Dinner was announced with a small speech. Lena thanking everyone for coming, for supporting family, for being flexible this year. She raised her glass. People clinked. I lifted mine halfway and set it down again. We sat at a long table. I ended up between my aunt and a friend of Lena's I'd met only once. Lena sat at the head, Ivy beside her. My mother watched us carefully, like she was monitoring a volatile reaction. The meal moved forward. Plates passed, compliments exchanged. Someone mentioned the renovation. Someone else asked about work. Lena answered a question for me before I could open my mouth. "Mina's doing well," she said brightly. "She's always been responsible." The organized one. There was a familiar edge to the word, a way of framing me as useful rather than autonomous. I smiled slightly and took a sip of water. Halfway through the main course, Lena stood. "I actually want to say something," she said, tapping her fork against her glass. The sound carried. Conversations paused. She looked around the table, then at me. "I know this year's been complicated," she said, "but I'm grateful we can all sit together and be honest with each other." My mother's shoulders relaxed a little. Lena continued, voice warm. "There's been some confusion recently, some hurt feelings, and I think it's important we clear the air." I felt the shift then. The way attention angled subtly toward me. Lena's version of generosity always came with the spotlight. She turned fully toward me now. "Mina, you know I love you," she said. "But when you accuse someone of something serious, it affects everyone." The table was very quiet. "I haven't accused you of anything," I said evenly. Lena smiled sadly, the expression she used when she wanted to look reasonable. "You filed a report," she said. "You involved outside people over a misunderstanding." Nadia frowned slightly. Marissa leaned forward, interested. Lena spread her hands. "I've tried to handle this privately. I even sent you a plan. Because I believe in solving problems as adults." My mother looked between us. "What plan?" she asked. Lena hesitated just long enough to make it look reluctant. "A repayment plan," she said, "for something Mina thinks I owe her." The word thinks hung in the air. I didn't interrupt. Tat! I let her finish. That was important. "I didn't want to bring this up today," Lena said, "but since it's affecting the family, I think transparency matters." She looked at me again. "I wish you'd trusted me instead of assuming the worst." Around the table, people shifted. Some nodded. Some avoided my eyes. I waited until the silence settled. Then I reached into my bag and took out the folder. I didn't open it yet. "I agree about transparency," I said. My voice carried without effort. "That's why I brought documentation." Lena's smile froze. "I'm not interested in opinions," I continued. "Just facts." My mother's breath caught audibly. I opened the folder and slid a single page onto the table, turning it so the people nearest could see. Then another, and another. I didn't push them toward Lena. I placed them where others could read. "This is a credit card account opened 6 months ago in my name," I said. "I did not open it." Lena shook her head slightly, already preparing denial. "This is inappropriate," she said. I kept going. "These are the application details. The address on file is Lena's former apartment. The phone number is hers. The IP address matches her building." I turned a page. "These are the charges: dancewear, a photographer, a hotel, dates that correspond to events Lena posted publicly." A low murmur moved around the table. Nadia leaned closer, reading. Marissa's eyes widened. The bookkeeping sister-in-law went very still. I placed the final document down carefully. "This is a handwritten note from Lena," I said, acknowledging the debt and proposing a repayment plan that matches the minimum payments on the account. Lena's face had gone pale. Not angry, calculating. But the calculations were failing. "You can't just—" she started. I held up a hand, not sharply, just enough to pause her. "I'm not finished." The room was silent now. Even Ivy had stopped fidgeting. "I didn't confront you immediately," I said. "I didn't raise my voice. I documented." "I asked the bank to investigate. This isn't personal. It's procedural." Lena pushed her chair back slightly. "You're doing this to humiliate me," she said, voice thin. "I'm doing this because you hit me in public," I said without emphasis, "and because you used my identity to cover expenses you didn't want attached to your name." My mother stared at Lena, stunned. Lena looked around the table, searching for rescue, for someone to laugh it off, for someone to reframe it. No one did. "I was going to fix it," Lena said finally. "I told you that." "After you were reported," I said. And after you tried to frame it as my responsibility, I closed the folder. The bank's investigation is ongoing, I said. I haven't shared this online. I haven't contacted your employer. I haven't asked anyone here to take sides. I looked around the table once, calmly. I just wanted the truth to be visible. Lena's chair scraped loudly as she stood. This is unbelievable, she said. You planned this. I met her eyes. You invited everyone, I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked smaller standing there, stripped of narrative control. I gathered the folder and slid it back into my bag. I'll be leaving now, I said. I won't discuss this further today. My mother reached for my arm, then stopped herself. Mina, she said softly. I love you, I said to her. We'll talk later. I walked toward the door. Behind me, voices started up, confused, urgent, overlapping. As I put my coat on, Lena called after me, sharp and desperate. You think this is over? I turned once, just long enough. No, I said. I think it's finally started. And I stepped outside, leaving the door open behind me, knowing the consequences were already unfolding without me there. I didn't hear from Lena for 3 days. That was unusual. Silence wasn't her style. She preferred volume, texts stacked on top of each other, calls that escalated from concerned to offended to furious. When she didn't reach out, I assumed she was trying to regain control somewhere else. On the 4th day, the bank called. The investigation had concluded. The representative's tone was neutral, practiced. The facts were simple. The account had been opened fraudulently. The evidence was sufficient. The charges would be removed from my credit report, the account would be closed. The file would be forwarded to their legal department for next steps. I thanked her and asked for written confirmation. It arrived by email an hour later. I saved it. Then I forwarded a copy to my lawyer, not because I wanted to escalate, but because I wanted guidance. Precision mattered now. So did restraint. That evening my mother came by unannounced. She looked smaller than she had at Thanksgiving. Tired in a way that wasn't about age. I didn't sleep, she said as she stepped inside. I poured tea and sat across from her at the kitchen table. I didn't rush her. She told me a story, my mother said finally. Then Nadia showed me the documents. Then the bank called me, asking questions. I nodded. She said, you set her up. My mother continued, but she couldn't explain the paperwork. I didn't respond. After a moment, my mother covered her face with her hands. I didn't protect you, she said. Not at the store. Not before, I told myself. You were strong. I was, I said. I am. She looked up, eyes wet. She hit you. Yes. Silence settled between us. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. I won't ask you to fix this, my mother said quietly. I see now that I've been asking that your whole life. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand once. 2 days later, Lena's employer called me. I hadn't contacted them. They hadn't heard from me before. They were calling because the bank's legal department had reached out to confirm whether Lena had access to client financial information as part of her role. I answered truthfully and briefly. I'm not making a complaint, I said. I'm answering your question. They thanked me and ended the call. That night, Lena finally texted Mess, Lena, they're suspending me pending review. I didn't respond. Another message followed. Lena, you could stop this. I took a screenshot. Lena, please. I set the phone down. The next development came through the family, not directly. Nadia called me on a Sunday morning. She admitted it, she said without preamble. Not to everything, but enough. I listened. She said she was going to pay it back before anyone noticed. That she never meant to hurt you. That you've always had more. I closed my eyes briefly. Not in pain, in recognition. That's what she believes, I said. Nadia exhaled. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You see it now, I said. That's enough. By the end of the month, Lena had moved out of the house. The renovation photos disappeared from her social media. The captions shifted. Vague references to betrayal, to learning who's really in your corner. Comments thinned. Invitations stopped coming. The bank didn't pursue criminal charges immediately. They gave her the option to cooperate fully, repay the amount, and accept internal consequences. She did, quietly. I never celebrated that. What I did do was change my passwords, freeze my credit, update my will, close the open door she'd been walking through for years without resistance. At Christmas, I spent the day with friends instead of family. I brought dessert. I left early. I slept well. In January, Lena emailed me from a new address. The message was short. "I don't recognize you anymore." I read it once. Then I archived it. We didn't speak after that. Not because I was angry, because I was done negotiating my right to exist without being used. Months passed. The bruise faded. The credit score corrected itself. The folder moved from my bag to a drawer I rarely opened. Sometimes people asked, gently, why Lena and I weren't close anymore. I said, "We wanted different things." That was true. I wanted boundaries. She wanted access. The last time I saw her was at a distance, at a family funeral in early spring. We nodded to each other. Nothing more. No scene. No reconciliation speech. Just acknowledgement. As I left the service, I caught my reflection in the glass door. Calm, unremarkable, intact. There was no rush of victory. No satisfaction that needed an audience. Only the quiet certainty that I had chosen myself, slowly, deliberately, and without apology. And that choice had finally been respected because it had been enforced by facts, not force. I walked to my car and drove away, unhurried, knowing I wouldn't need to keep receipts forever, just long enough to make sure the truth stood on its own.